Good morning, everybody, and it's great to see so many people in the room. You know we only have those most committed to e-invoicing when the weather is like this. Those of you who turn up on a cold and difficult morning to get around the city. So thanks everybody for coming along. This is our third workshop on e-invoicing. And we're delighted to welcome as well all of you, but also our colleagues from the Commission to support us in terms of this communication. We have reached some important milestones since our last conference, and in fact we have now got the majority of central government bodies compliant with the EU directive. So 86% or 41 central government bodies are now fully compliant with the e-invoicing directive, and another 7 are in train. So we're nearly there in terms of central government, and that's a great place to be. So the focus then shifts and moves on to sub-central government, so local authorities and other bodies across the public service to step into the shoes and step up to the obligations under the directive. As Declan said, the final deadline for compliance to the directive is just a couple of months away on the 18th of April. And at that stage, all contracting authorities across the state must have put in place the appropriate arrangements to comply. But today is around supporting you in relation to that, and it probably is easier than you may think. So today is about giving you the right kind of information to enable you to get there. Thankfully, in the room, we have great expertise, and we're joined by colleagues from across the public service who will also detail how they have approached it and what has worked for them. The enablers are there both in terms of the experience across the public service, but also through the framework agreement which the OGP has established, which again is easily accessed and can support you in becoming compliant. So you'll hear more about that today. A key enabler, though, for us is the rollout of shared services. It'll help bring consistency of approach, and it's pleasing to hear so much about the progress that's already taking place on shared service across the public service. So in the education space, the Education Shared Business Service has already adopted the e-invoicing capability, and that has been in place for some time. We'll hear today, I think, further about the LGMA's e-invoicing pilot and how that will support local government. So again, good progress is being made there. And in the health space as well, HBS colleagues are here today again to talk about and hear about what is happening in the health space. So again, great progress has been made across the system in terms of moving forward. But there's a lot of people who are not covered by those shared services. So it's an opportunity to build the e-invoicing community here today and to make sure that everybody is gearing up for those obligations in time for the April 2020 deadline. But this all sits in a broader context, and the Office of Government Procurement is part of the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform. A big drive from government is around digital and digital transformation. And it's important that we understand the role that e-invoicing plays in that broader digital agenda. Government is very focused on improving how we do business digitally as a state and as an organisation. And we know there are exemplar countries out there like Estonia who've made enormous strides in terms of how they deliver services to citizens and work with businesses to do that in a far more digital way. So it's a good opportunity to hear from colleagues from the EU here today around the progress that has been made in other jurisdictions. That use of digital is a key enabler for the economy, and our programmes are focused hugely around delivering better outcomes for businesses and for citizens through digital means. Again, our colleagues today, you'll hear more around how e-invoicing sits as one of the enablers in terms of that digital transformation and the role it's playing in enabling a much more digital flow of not only work to suppliers, but also payments to suppliers. But a lot of today is not around the lofty pieces of policy, it's around the practical supports. And today is really designed around helping you as interested parties to understand how you can access and become compliant to e-invoicing. but also to understand its benefits, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So there are these legal obligations, but there's a lot of practical supports which the OGP has established, both in establishing the E-Invoicing Ireland team, but also in establishing a commercial framework with suppliers, which will help you become compliant. I'm very pleased in particular that we'll hear from local government in terms of the practical experience they've had in terms of the work that has been done, how that has been managed and how that has rolled out. I think it's a very good positive case that really will help people understand the approach and what can be worked. In terms of our own side and within the OGP, we've been focused on improving the service we provide to public bodies in enabling the e-invoicing. And so that constant focus on improving how we go about communicating and making sure that that framework is working is a key piece of our work. And I'm pleased to say we're nearly at the point of finalising a video that will help people sign up to the framework and to set out the parameters of their organisations. So there is a framework which will be available shortly, which will hugely help people in accessing the framework and hopefully make it easier for people. I'd like to turn now just and talk a little bit about the benefits of e-invoicing. The flow of money through the economy is a huge and important factor for government. We need to make sure that we are paying suppliers and paying suppliers on time. The payment of suppliers, particularly for SMEs, is critical to their lifeblood of their businesses. And as most of you will know, most businesses, if they go out of business, it's not because they don't have order books, it's because they don't have cash. So cash is king still in the economy. And the state spends an enormous amount of money. This year, the state, through public procurement alone, will spend about 16.5 billion euros worth of money, taxpayer money. And that lifeblood flows down through the supply chains, down to individual suppliers and individual employees. So that 16.5 billion works out for every working day at about 75 million euros. So in the half a morning we'll spend here, 40 million will have been paid out to suppliers. That's only done through invoices, and the state processes about 4 million invoices every year. So again, in terms of today alone, as a working day, about just under 20,000 invoices will be processed by the public service, 20,000. So it's an enormous number. And if we can do that efficiently, in a fashion that's environmentally friendly, because that's all bits of paper that's winding its way around the system as well, and in a way that works for SMEs, we have a real opportunity to create a win-win situation, not only for the public service in terms of modernising and doing things in the most efficient fashion, but also in terms of the supply base, to making sure that they have much more predictability in their cash flows, and it's done also in an environmentally friendly way. The team will also talk to you about the national approach around the standardised Connect Once method. And as more and more public bodies come on board, it enables organisations and businesses to make the investment from their side to move into the e-invoicing space, and it creates that critical mass effect. And in other jurisdictions, e-invoicing levels are up beyond 70%. We're only starting. So if we can get to a point where we create critical mass, there's an increased incentive for businesses to move in that direction and make the investment that's required on their side to enable e-invoicing. There are other benefits for the government and for the state as well through e-invoicing. It does enable far better business transactions to be done, particularly in a way that enables greater transparency. And that improvement in data and data flow is a huge enabler for the state as well in understanding where the money is spent, how the money is spent, and on what goods and services. So again, there's plenty of opportunity for the state to capture the administrative efficiencies of moving in this direction, but also create a win for businesses and the environment. I'll talk a little bit about the importance of these matters to SMEs now. Within the Irish state, it's important to remember that out of every 1,000 businesses, 997 or 99.7% of all businesses are SMEs in Ireland. So only 3 in every 1,000 businesses are large businesses. Also, it's important to remember that SMEs create 2/3 of all employment in Ireland. So they are the lifeblood of our economy, and we know already, and you will have heard it from government already, that we're probably too much reliant upon the large corporate multinationals in terms of our tax take. So making sure that our SMEs are successful is a critical matter for the government and also for ourselves as citizens. So it's important that we engage heavily and listen to our SME communities. And the OGP has established an SME advisory group who we have met with and discussed the e-invoicing initiative to make sure that they're aware that this is there, this is available to suppliers, to government, and that should be leveraged. And we probably need to do some more in that space. That group has political support and is chaired by the Minister of State at the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform. So government is engaging with business to make sure we're trying to do things in the most efficient and effective way, not only for the state, but also for those businesses themselves. But SMEs can't sit on their laurels, and a recent OECD study into SME businesses in Ireland indicated that to compete and to thrive, they need to move in a more digital fashion. And we see this. The organisations who've moved online and have much more online presence are performing better. We see the high streets diminishing in terms of the retail trade, and the online trade becoming really, really important to the lifeblood. And Irish businesses can do well in that regard, but they need to be in a position to move into a digital world. So the business community within the state making a move towards a much more digital way of doing business is a huge enabler for SMEs to actually make that move. Because if we can work with them in a cooperative and collaborative fashion to make sure that they see the benefits, then the broader benefits of becoming much more online and much more digitally enabled has a real benefit to the overall economy and to the survival of those small businesses themselves. So this directive has created a real impetus in Europe. It has created a focus point for people to say, let's move in a much more digital fashion. And I expect we will see a much more digital buying regime, procurement regime, payment regime coming forward, from e-ordering, e-procurement, all the way through to e-invoicing and e-payment. And that will create a momentum in Ireland that will become unstoppable. So I guess if you're here today to understand how you can basically establish the basic compliance levels, or whether you're here to understand how you can integrate e-invoicing much more digitally into your financial systems, I think you'll find today will be of real benefit and help you understand what you can do to enable government policy be implemented in practical terms in delivering for the economy. The benefits of transparency and insight that we'll get from that, and process efficiencies and cash flow for businesses, is critically important. So just to start to finish up, first of all, I'd like to thank our colleagues from the European Commission's Connecting Europe facility team who've joined us again here today for the third event. We're thinking of giving them passports. They're spending so much time in Ireland. I think they really like the place. But we're very pleased that they support us in terms of coming and sharing their experience and sharing their knowledge in terms of what's happening across Europe. So welcome to Martin and Christian again. And again, it's really helpful that they've made it here today. In Ireland, I think we're lucky that we can we have very good engagement with many other member states, and it's great that we can learn from other member states what has worked in those countries to enable this to be successful. Ireland has made great progress over the last number of years, but there is a completion factor that we need to get done now. And in terms of our maturity, we've taken an enormous step forward, which is a great testament to the work that has been done by the e-invoicing Ireland team within the OGP, and I just want to thank them very much for that. And lastly, I'd like to just thank you all for coming along here today. I hope it's a day you get some good information and support out of, that you'll understand your obligations when you're leaving here today, but also that you'll have built up a bit of a network. The good thing about the Irish public service, a bit like it mirrors Ireland itself, it's very easy to get to know lots of people and build up a good network. And so I'd encourage you to share information with other colleagues as you sit around tables, get to know people and hear of other people's experiences within the room as well, because it can be helpful when you're meeting challenges within the organisation. So hopefully today will give you a lot of practical supports for doing what you need to do. And we look forward from an OGP and an Einvoicing Ireland perspective to continuing to support you in what you are taking on, to make sure that the arrangements we're putting in place, the information we're providing, and that critically important framework works for you. And in that way, we will support you in doing what you need to do. So thanks very much for your time, and I'm going to hand over to Maura now. Thank you.